Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
All right, my pleasure. Background, you've got about 20 years experience in technology, software, and professional services. I'm going to sit down for a second and let you take it from here. Give us the highlights of your career in the technology industry, and then talk to us about what Konposit.com does.
Happy to. So I have about 20 years experience in tech. In my case, most of those years were at IBM, but I spent some time at some other firms as well, including HP and Oracle, always working with very large firms, typically Fortune 500, and typically working with very senior executives and what we call C-level executives, which is the C-suite, as I was working to sell very complex business solutions and kind of transformational type business processes to clients. I did that up until the last year or so, and then left that bigger company space to form my own consulting firm. I saw a need and an opportunity in the market for this kind of liquid workforce, what maybe colloquially may be known as kind of the gig economy, and sought specifically for sales consulting. In my case, global sales consulting, as one of the primary use cases I see is a foreign firm that may have some depth in their home market, but don't necessarily have a domestic footprint here in the U.S. And they're looking to kind of get the sales going in the U.S. So I can help them get their sales going. And I do work specifically with the tech space. Another use case that I work in is that C-level and helping companies get engaged with the C-level. For tech firms, oftentimes it's hard to navigate to those senior levels of an organization. A lot of times people have comfort level lower levels, but it's very important to get access to C-level. So I can either help the company get access myself, or I can work with their salespeople and do some sales coaching and provide them with some skills and suggestions on getting access to the C-level. So those are some of the use cases that we see a lot at Konposit,
right?
Konposit.com specifically. So
you've got to get to the C-level, otherwise you don't get a big decision made. How do you do that, though?
So usually, I guess when you've been doing tech for quite a while, you do have obviously a lot of connections. And with C-level, you really do need to get access through like warm connections. That, or you do choose warm connections that might be fairly highly placed. Let's say it's a CFO or a CIO who maybe you do know, and you're looking to get engaged with the CEO. And you may work with that person as a bit of a project or champion type sponsor. And if you don't know anyone at the organization, then ways you do that is, again, for C-level, you're looking for warm connections. So I guess to some extent it does take having worked in the market for a while, because you're looking for warm threads and warm connections to get access to the C-level. I suppose there might be instances where people might have cold connections to C-level, but typically C-suite, I feel, and I find, is a little bit more of a warm connection. People that you may know who can help you get access to that senior executive.
Yeah, either the heart or tentacles of your network. I get it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Talk to me about needing to know the client deeply. We all know the buzzword of that statement, but there's more to it than just saying it. There's doing it. Take us through that. So
a lot of people will, and I guess I'm at fault of this as well. I suppose we all probably are. You might go to a client and go sit with them and expect to ask them something like, what keeps you up at night, or what's up with you? Well, you can't do that, especially you can't do that with the C-level. Matter of fact, it's not even enough to know their financials deeply and their strategy deeply on your own. But I think to your point in the open, you need to actually live their world.
Yep.
So if they're a retailer, you need to shop their stores. You need to buy merchandise from the web and return it in the store. If it's a bank, you need to open an account with the bank. If it's a utility, you need to open an account with the utility. You need to actually be part of their world, because your experience in their world could actually be feedback you can provide to the C-level executive. So you need to know their world very deeply, both from publicly available materials such as financials, but you also need to be able to live that world and that experience as well. Because you need to be able to be a thought leader to the executive. It's not enough to just know who they are. You need to be able to provide them a thought leadership input from the marketplace. Some use case they may need to know in their market or their world. Maybe it's even a people move that they may not have heard about. That's something they ought to know about. Things like that. You've got to be a thought leader to your clients.
As part of your network, do you invite them into your world a little bit so that you experience them off their game so that they can actually open up in some cases?
Yeah, and well, in that regard, CEOs and C-level executives are very much looking at what use cases should I know about.
Yep.
So again, I'll pull on the thread of the retail example. At Neiman Marcus, they're going to want to know what use cases is Nordstrom looking at. Now, obviously, you can't share confidential information. This needs to be things that you can share, publicly available type information. Mm-hmm. But you need to be able to provide them with use cases. You know, it might be something transformational that a company's doing around digital, which is of the public domain. An executive and a senior placed executive from Neiman's is going to probably want to know what they're doing at Nordstrom. You know, at Dillard's, they might want to know what they're doing at JCPenney. Again, of the public level, but they're going to want to know use cases in their industry. So yes, to that extent, they're going to want to hear from you as well, and they're going to want to know things that they ought to be aware of.
What's the hardest part of what you have to do?
The hardest part of what I had to do would be maybe what I've described, which is that kind of 360 view that you really need to incorporate. Again, you've got to really deeply understand their firm. You need to find that navigational point so there's a warm thread into that client, and then you need to be able to live that world. And then in addition, when you actually do get the meeting, you need to be highly prepared. I mean, almost to the extent where you've actually practiced meetings and meeting flow with your teammates that you're bringing along. So it just is a lot of preparation because it's a lot of hard work. You know, a lot of people may not want to do that, right? But when it comes to C-level executives, you really have to do that, or the meeting guaranteed will not go well, and you will not be invited back.
Through your processes, what are you finding comes to the top for the salespeople what they need to do to engage with them? I mean, I heard the practice part. I heard the know their world part, but there's something else. I mean, there's got to be a personal connection there to make somebody make a decision, not just numbers, because people don't just make decisions based off the logistical hard numbers. There's other things involved in this.
Yep.
We got about a minute left, so you could snap that one out for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so it's not enough to just do all those things, I suppose, that 360 that I shared. You really need to be trustworthy, because at the end of the day, and all of us feel this, you don't do any business. No one does business with people that they don't trust. Nope. So to really even have an opportunity to really have these dialogues, you've really got to show that trustworthiness. And that could be getting back to people quickly when you've told them you've done that. And that sounds easy, but a lot of people, when they say they're going to do things, don't do them or don't do them quickly. You need to do them well. You need to do them thoroughly. You need to really inquire to some extent. These are all humans, right? They're people. So you need to, I mean, when you've earned the right to ask, who are they, right? Because at the end of the day, people buy from people they know and they trust, and that's in tech and in every space. So you've got to understand the people component as well, beyond just the corporate component and the strategy component. You need to know who they are and be able to relate to that. And not in a superficial sense, like I'm wanting to like you and know you because I want you to buy from me. You need to truly have an air of wanting to understand people and wanting to almost a bit of a servant leadership attitude. You really want to know what you can do to give back and to give to them.
Tracy,
and genuinely do that.
Tracy, we got to go, but I want to continue the conversation later because I know you bring a lot to the table.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Tracy De Cicco, CEO, Konposit.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break with Mance Harmon at Swirls, CEO Swirls and Hashgraph.